Starting as promised here in England, where after 4 weeks of additional delay, the economy has opened up. The country had been under on and off COVID-19 restrictions for over a year. Remaining lockdown measures have now been lifted by the Boris Johnson government. The Prime Minister himself is isolating after he came into contact with the Health Minister, who has tested positive for COVID-19. Boris Johnson is urging citizens to be extremely cautious.
Freedom Day for England is here. After over a year of COVID-19 lockdown, England has finally lifted restrictions. Nightclubs are open, sports stadia, cinemas, theatres are allowed to run at full capacity. Legal mandates of wearing masks indoor and working from home have been scrapped. Life is back to normal in Britain. Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is self-isolating after he came in contact with Health Minister who tested positive for COVID-19, urged citizens to be very cautious and to get vaccinated.
Please, be cautious. Go forward tomorrow into the next step with all the right prudence and respect for other people and the risks that the disease continues to present. And above all, please, when you're asked to get that second jab, get your jab, please come forward and do it.
On travel, the guidance recommending travel to amber list countries will also be removed. And adults who are fully vaccinated will not have to self-isolate when returning from countries in the amber list. With an exception for those returning from France, contact tracing and self-isolation requirements, however, will remain in place. The decision to lift all restrictions has been taken by the UK government in favour of restarting an economy damaged by a series of lockdowns since the coronavirus outbreak.
If we don't do it now, then we'll be opening up in the autumn, the winter months, when the virus has the advantage of the cold weather. We lose the precious fire break that we get with the school holidays. If we don't do it now, we've got to ask ourselves, when will we ever do it? So this is the right moment, but we've got to do it cautiously.
England has the 7th highest COVID death toll in the world. Experts say the country will have more new infections each day than it did at the height of the second wave earlier this year. On Sunday, over 48,000 new COVID-19 cases were reported. UK government's decision of reopening Britain has been slammed by scientists and opposition parties. Experts are calling it a dangerous leap into the unknown.
And it doesn't seem the right time to be completely lifting all restrictions when we have rising levels of infection, levels of hospitalizations that are increasing, and even though vaccination has significantly weakened the link between infections, hospitalizations and deaths, we still are in a very difficult position here in England, and I think it's the wrong time to be releasing all restrictions.
And the Labour Party says the government is being reckless.
But they want to be reassured that in return that they are protected by others wearing masks. But getting rid of the mandatory rule, I think, is too much of a risk.
But the success of the vaccine rollout has helped keep the Conservative Prime Minister afloat politically. 87% of England's adult population has had one dose of the coronavirus vaccine. Over 68% have had both doses. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Freedom Day message came with a reminder.
We've got to do it cautiously. We've got to remember that this virus is sadly still out there. Cases are rising. We can see the extreme contagiousness of the Delta variant, but we have this immense consolation and satisfaction that there is no doubt at all that the vaccine program, the massive vaccination program, has very severely weakened the link between infection and hospitalization and between infection and serious illness and death. And that is the vital thing. So
Scientists warn that as the country unlocks, the cases could rise to 200,000 daily later in the summer. Even though England is witnessing far fewer deaths than in previous waves, such a caseload would put immense pressure on its National Health Service and even risk seeding new variants. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
So after 17 months of empty dance floors, England's nightclubs have reopened with a bang. At midnight local time, Sunday night into Monday morning, nightclubs across the country opened their doors to eager club goers. Many reopening parties were sold out days before.
I definitely feel so relieved that things are going back to normal. It feels like it is, but it still is a little bit apprehensive.
Yeah, I still don't feel like it's real.
Yeah.
Tristan Moffat, operations director of the nightclub The Piano Works, said that it lost around $55,000 a month since restrictions began last March. But while entertainment businesses and partygoers are jubilant, many remain worried about the unlocking at a time when cases are surging.
Mounting pressure on the government to go, consider or keep the restrictions or potentially go into a lockdown. For us, that would be devastating because it would be yet another blow, yet another. We invest a huge amount of money to reopen. We invest in COVID safety measures, training staff, and essentially, again, it would be locking us down almost straight after letting us reopen.
Global democracies are under cyber attack. Israel's technology firm NSO has been accused of using its cyber spyware Pegasus to surveil journalists globally. The latest findings are part of a global investigation called the Pegasus Project. Paris-based news organisation Forbidden Stories and human rights group Amnesty International, together with 17 news outlets, have accessed a list of 50,000 smartphone numbers. Reports suggest the data belongs to people of interest identified by NSO's clients since 2016. Contacts of activists, journalists, business executives and politicians around the world are included in the list. The revelations raise privacy and rights concerns. The list was shared with the news organisations. The total number of phones on the list that were actually targeted or surveilled is unknown. The numbers on the list are unattributed, yet media outlets participating in the project were able to identify more than 1,000 people in more than 50 countries. The identified list includes several members of Arab royal families, at least 65 business executives, 85 human rights activists, 189 journalists, and more than 600 politicians and government officials, including heads of state, prime ministers and cabinet ministers. Many numbers on the list were clustered in 10 countries: Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Hungary, India, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Morocco, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Journalists on the list work for Agence France Presse, the Associated Press, Reuters, Bloomberg, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, The New York Times, Al Jazeera, France 24, Radio Free Europe, Mediapart, El País, Le Monde, The Economist and Voice of America. NSO has issued a denial. Threatening a defamation lawsuit, NSO says the report is full of wrong assumptions and uncorroborated theories. It says, quote, NSO sells its technology solely to law enforcement and intelligence agencies of vetted governments for the sole purpose of saving lives through the Preventing Crime and Terror Act. Israel's NSO group and its Pegasus malware have been in the news since 2016. That's when researchers accused it of helping spy on a dissident in the UAE. Founded in 2010, the Tel Aviv-based group employs hundreds of people in Israel and around the world. NSO's spyware, called Pegasus, enables the remote surveillance of smartphones. Pegasus is reportedly a highly invasive tool that can switch on a target's phone camera and microphone. as well as accessing the data on the device, effectively turning a phone into a pocket spy. In some cases, it can be installed without the need to trick a user into initiating a download. Turning our focus now to Jerusalem, where brief clashes have been reported between Israeli police and Palestinians at the Al-Aqsa Mosque on Sunday. No serious injuries were reported. But today, a controversy erupted over Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's comments, saying that Jews have the freedom of worship on Temple Mount. The Prime Minister's office has issued a statement clarifying that the Prime Minister's comment was a mistake and that the status quo has not changed, which dictates that while Jews can visit the site, only Muslims are allowed to pray there. Temple Mount is the third holiest site in Islam and the holiest for Jews because it was the location of biblical temples. It also has a history of being the site of Israeli-Palestine violence, the most recent being the 11-day war between Israel and Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip. Next to Thailand, where massive protests have broken out in the capital city of Bangkok. Demonstrators took to the streets demanding the Premier Prayut Chan-o-cha's resignation over mismanagement of the COVID-19 crisis. The outbreak is worsening in Thailand and the country is facing its worst wave since the beginning of the pandemic. Protesters were met with rubber bullets, tear gas and water cannons. Authorities are defending their actions, saying that protesters were given prior warnings.
Thai police fired water cannon, tear gas and rubber bullets on Sunday to stop more than 1,000 people marching on the office of the Prime Minister. These anti-government protesters are calling for Prayut Chan-o-cha to resign. They accuse him and his government of mismanaging the COVID-19 pandemic. The demonstration also comes after the Thai government tightened restrictions. On Friday, it imposed a nationwide ban on public gatherings of more than 5 people. The maximum penalties are 2 years in prison, a 40,000 baht fine, or both. Protester Itinan says he's aware of the risks.
I understand that the situation is not getting any better, but we have to come out and show them that we're not happy about the measures imposed by the government. It's like they only wanted everything to stop at a standstill, but they were not trying to fix anything. Yes, I know that we are risking getting infected. That's why I try to protect myself by wearing gloves and a gas mask, so that I will be at low risk.
Police used force after some protesters tried to dismantle barbed wire and metal barricades leading to Government House, where the Prime Minister works. The protest marked 1 year since the first of a wave of large-scale street demonstrations, led by youth groups that attracted hundreds of thousands of people across the country. Thailand reported 11,397 infections and 101 deaths on Sunday, bringing its cumulative total to more than 403,000 cases and 3,341 fatalities. The vast majority of them are from an outbreak since early April, which is fueled by the highly transmissible Alpha and Delta variants.
The COVID outbreak also continues to make inroads in Indonesia, as the country witnesses a record daily rise in cases. The South Asian nations reported more confirmed daily COVID-19 infections than India and Brazil in recent days, making it one of the worst affected regions in the world. On Sunday, Indonesia reported 1,093 fatalities and nearly 45,000 COVID-19 cases. According to official figures, over 73,000 people have died since the beginning of the pandemic. But these figures are believed to be a huge undercount due to low testing and poor tracing measures in the country. India has one of the world's weakest testing systems, performing 55.89 tests for every 1,000 people. The government, meanwhile, is setting out plans to speed up the vaccination drive to contain the outbreak. India is meanwhile sending help in the form of nearly 300 oxygen concentrators and 100 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen to help Indonesia combat the crisis. The latest wave of COVID infections pushed the Indonesian healthcare system to the brink of collapse. A new survey shows the public's trust in President Joko Widodo has fallen sharply due to his government's handling of the crisis. With hospital occupancy rates at around 90%, many COVID patients have been forced to self-isolate and recover at home due to a shortage of beds. Volunteers and organisations have come up with initiatives to provide free food to self-isolating patients in Jakarta neighbourhoods.
Banyak rumah sakit yang memang penuh, terus tidak bisa masuk karena UGD sendiri juga penuh, ketersediaan oksigen juga langka. Jadi kita dengan program dapur cekal ini untuk gimana caranya supaya masyarakat sini kita kasih makanan-makanan yang memang bergizi, cepat pulih, dan imunnya juga menaikkan imun.
Greece's famed party island Mykonos has fallen silent after the government imposed new restrictions to contain a local COVID-19 outbreak. A week-long night curfew's been imposed, music in restaurants and cafes has been banned. The new restrictions pushed tourists to cancel holidays and has left many business owners fuming.
On the Greek party island Mykonos on Saturday night, something was missing. Authorities have banned music in cafes, restaurants and bars, as well as imposed a week-long nighttime curfew from 1 a.m. till 6 a.m.
Well, we've only got here a few days ago, and now nothing's open, so our holiday's been ruined.
The restrictions have been brought in to contain what has been described as a worrying local outbreak of COVID-19. But the decision, after the global health crisis caused a collapse in visitor numbers last year, has left Business Association head Iraklis Zissamopoulos fuming.
They decide to destroy the economy of the island at the most critical time of the year. We have a lot of cancellations immediately. People leave from the island, and it will be a disaster for us and for our staff.
Greece depends on tourism for a fifth of its economy, and Mykonos is one of its most popular destinations. Its reputation for all-night partying lures more than 1 million visitors every year, including Hollywood stars, models and top athletes. For Jesus Marino, it was the perfect place to spend his birthday.
There is no music, so there is no celebration. Make me so sad. Bring back the music, please. Please, please, please.
Infections have risen across Greece in recent weeks, including on Mykonos, where health authorities recorded 37 new cases on Saturday. It's been averaging around the same number over the last 7 days. In the early hours of Sunday, the usually bustling streets of Mykonos were quiet, as disappointed tourists like Sarah and Dina leave.
We came to party, so bye Mykonos.
Western America is battling raging fires. The Tamarack fire that's been fanned by fierce winds has now engulfed over 21,000 acres, leading to mandatory evacuations in Oregon. The blaze is believed to have started from a lightning strike on the 4th of July near Alpine County. Nearly 20,000 firefighters and support personnel are struggling to contain fires raging across the western states. The record-breaking heat has baked much of the West in recent weeks. Around 80 major active wildfires have burnt more than 1 million acres in 12 states. Bootleg is the largest of 80 major fires now active in the US. Evacuations have been ordered for various regions impacted by the fire. The small community of Markleeville on the Nevada border has been evacuated. More than 2.5 million acres have already been burnt this year.
They gave us about 20 minutes notice. That it looked like they said the fire was like 5-6 miles away, and about an hour later it was right on us. They didn't give us any time at all.
Inside the fire zones, vegetation has burnt out under strong winds. Firefighters who've been spraying retardants to coat vegetation to stop the spread of the flames now fear the fire may take months to get the blaze fully contained. Scientists have attributed the growing frequency and intensity of wildfires to prolonged drought. Experts also say the increasing bouts of excessive heat are symptomatic of climate change. In the narrow streets and winding alleys of Tripoli's Medina, ambitious restoration work is underway to restore the heart of the Libyan capital, oppressed under Muammar Gaddafi, to its former glory.
The Tripoli Medina is an architectural treasure trove, influenced over the years by various civilizations. But more recently, the ancient heart of the Libyan capital has lost its luster. From the 1970s, the dictatorial regime of Colonel Gaddafi confiscated shops and homes. Richer residents left, the Medina fell into disrepair. Unsightly new concrete buildings caused frowns, but at the end of 2020, restoration work began.
It's heartwarming and brings back the soul of the city we knew as children, whose streets, lanes and alleys we loved.
These lanes and alleys are now lined with reconstruction workers. The old town has become a work site occupied by architects, historians and craftsmen. A dedicated committee supervises the whole operation, determined to save whatever they can of the 50-hectare historic site.
Since the reinstatement of the Tripoli Old Town Authority, the committee has set specific standards, such as limiting destruction and illegal construction in the old town.
The Phoenicians founded the Medina in the 7th century BC, but the Romans, Greeks and Ottomans also left their mark. Its architecture reflects this rich history. The Roman Arch of Marcus Aurelius, the minaret of the Gurgi Mosque and the bell tower of St. Mary's Church all jostle for attention. Only the eastern parts of the city, home to the gold and silk markets, have withstood the ravages of time. Once restored, the neglected corners of the old city hope to see the same vibrancy return to their streets once again.
And that's all we have time for on this edition of WION Live, broadcast from London. For more global news and updates, do stay tuned to WION World is One.